Can you? Oh, you're Senator Anil Roberts, Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I see that my colleague, Senator Al-Rawi, is not here as yet. I wish he was here, because as I contribute to the Constitution Amendment Bill 2025, I wanted to deal with one or two points that he made. I must say that it was not one of his best contributions I've ever heard, but I forgive him because he might be a little bit distracted with Nelson Gate, CPEP Gate, Rental Gate, so I forgive the Honorable Senator. First and foremost, the Honorable Senator started off by saying that the bill, the amendments, brought a legitimate aim to enlarge the diaspora, all right? And we agree with that, but then he lost his way and concluded differently. But he said that Section 17, which this bill amends, he said that he was describing, Constitution and supreme law and so on. But he has to understand, and he must agree, that Section 17 is not supreme law, it's not the Constitution, it's not entrenched. Section 54 of the Constitution states which laws are entrenched rights. What we are debating here about Section 17 is not entrenched, and therefore it can be changed by a simple majority, and that's just one vote. Now, the supreme law can be amended by an ordinary legislation, and that was one of his favorite cases to quote. He quotes Surat, but today he forgot about that. He talked about Lebanon, but he could have easily included Guyana and the United States, for example. The Honorable Senator was talking about what could possibly happen in the future if at some point in time someone came to this parliament to allow people to vote who are outside of the country and so on. I don't know if he thought this was the Yesenia Gonzalez crystal ball legislation. We could only legislate for what is real, what is here, what is law. We can't legislate for what is his fantasy. We don't vote en masse like the USA. We don't vote for one man, one vote for our prime minister. We vote in constituencies. If someone is outside, it's against the law. They cannot vote. They have to, what would they do? Send a ballot from Brixton, and it will go where? They go Martin West? It will go Lauketat Alparo. It was a ludicrous argument, and I sat here and I was wondering what was going on with this former Attorney General, who admitted that he hadn't seen that piece of legislation, even though his government was discussing this, because it said that we are rushing and coming here fast and we should go before a joint select committee. But he was in the government, and his government with this timeline, with this legislation, that we are now taking the relay, we take the baton, we improve it and we bring it here to the Senate and to the Parliament. But it began in March 2024. Last time I checked, he was a minister in the PNM government and a former Attorney General who were discussing this, the preliminary discussion between the Minister of Sport and Community Development and so on, and it continued throughout. You have March to September 2024. And then in February, before the election, that the people realized that those on that side didn't deserve to be there, February 12, 2025, because the Honorable Senator also attacked my colleague and tried to laugh and make a joke to say that he talked about ad hominem and that he should not have done that. And well, Senator Rawi is normally the one that he may contribute in Latin, because he's so trying to impress other senior counsel who brighter than him, that he comes here with a plethora of Latin for us, right? Well, he didn't read in February 12, 2025, the PNM government. There were comments from the then Ministry of National Security under the PNM that they received the policy brief, and they said that the constitutional amendment will offend against the ad hominem doctrine as it applies only to the high-performing athletes. On April 4, 2025, election was 24 days away. That I can forgive him. He was busy making sure that the CPEP board encouraged and enhanced contracts and extended to 2029, so he didn't have time to study this. He was also ensuring that HDC hired some 2,300 workers for 2-month contracts. But in April 4, 2025, the comments of the Law Reform Commission were received. The comments were similar to that of the Minister of National Security that suggested amendment offends against the ad hominem principle and advised that the policy be amended. In comes a new government with an intelligent Attorney General, a legitimate senior counsel who got into law school quite easily based on his results without anybody having to beg and change the procedure. And immediately, amendments were made, adjustments were made, and this is not specifically for sport alone. So it's not ad hominem. There are other aspects to it that we could affect the brain drain that has been existing. We could encourage investment, bring back our doctors, our professionals, enhance our diaspora, and increase the talent pool from which Trinidad and Tobago could continue to be built. So therefore, we have gotten away from the ad hominem original intent, which was simply for sport and sport success, which would be expedient. So moving right along, but I forgive the Honorable Senator. He even went on to research that criminals in remand vote and so on. I was very sure. I didn't even know. He's right, I didn't know that, but I understand why he would research that, so that in the future elections, if he happened to be there, he will get to vote. Sport is a powerful thing. Sport is so powerful, countries globally have policies of sport to improve and to create a geopolitical situation and a power position to let their ideology be known, to get and market their countries, to show their superiority, to encourage countries to take them seriously. Some examples of this would be back in the day, East Germany. East Germany, when the wall came down in 1989, the world found out that East Germany was so intent on showing the world that their socialist structure was superior, that they had a secret plan, as secret as their nuclear defense, to show the world their superiority in sport through enhancement from doping, steroid use across the board. Those who are older would remember 1972, Cornelia Ender, swimmer, coming and winning 7 gold medals, talking deeper than my voice, stronger than me, and beating an American swimmer called Shirley Babashoff, who ended up with 6 silver and 1 gold. When the truth came out, it was found that the German government at that time, the East German government, had a plan to identify talent, put coaches, inject steroids without the permission of the athletes, without the knowledge, in order to show the world that socialism was the way to go. If you're talking about the power of sport right here in Trinidad and Tobago, all of us could remember where we were if we are old enough. Some senators over there look too young to know. When Hazy Crawford got up with his lane 1 with his white and red socks in 1976 in Montreal, Canada, and he defeated the greatest field in 100 history, winning gold from lane 1 and beating Harvey Glantz, Don Quarry, the Russian champion Borsov. Trinidad and Tobago still celebrates that up to now. In 2005 in Bahrain, when Dwight York took that corner and Torres headed it in, we could still feel goosebumps now because the national pride, how we felt, the unity. Everybody forgot who was African and Indian, who was mixed up, who was rich, who was poor, who was lawyer, who was on the street, and everybody celebrated. In 2009, Darren Ganga and his cricket team out there in India, the Champions League, playing for the Trinidad and Tobago Red Force before this CPL franchise thing came about. And Trinidad and Tobago with 1.2 billion people watching for 3 hours, won 6 games straight and just lost to New South Wales in the final. That is the power of sport. And what are the benefits of that? We could never quantify it. How much do you want to pay Darren Ganga and his team for that sort of advertisement. If you calculate it based on the average 30-second advertisement per X amount of thousand people viewing, you would see that for that 10 days, you would have owed Darren Ganga and his team millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the value to the mind share. That's the value of the marketing of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the power of sport. So when we say that we are coming here, and this is not an amendment only to deal with sport, but I'm dealing with the sport aspect to show you that it's not just about football and qualifying for our World Cup now. It is about utilizing all of our talent pool across the board. Who will remember Lara in 1994 making 375? Then his record being broken by Matthew Hayden, and we're saying, boy, we'll never get that again. We had a world record. And 2004 came about in Antigua, and Brian Lara made 400 not out. For 2.5 days, the world was watching Brian Lara, and after they say Brian Lara, they say Trinidad and Tobago. You cannot pay for that sort of advertisement. You cannot market your country better than your national athletes, inspiring and showing the brilliance of your country. And it's very interesting, because on this side, we appreciate that. And when we have athletes, we hear some on those on that side would say, but why you give them so much? Do they deserve that? When Keshawn Walcott in 2012 threw 84 meters, 58 centimeters, and we sat there waiting as one after the next, throw after throw, nobody beat him, even though 2 days before, someone had thrown 87 meters. And when he won that gold medal, the country went up in pure celebration. But the entire world was watching that event for a period of over an hour and a half with Trinidad and Tobago emblazoned on his chest. Then some people said, while I was minister and we gave him and celebrated him with a HDC house, $1 million TT dollars, a national award. They said, why so much? That's too much. We could never pay these athletes for the value of that they bring to us, not just for marketing, but when people see our country, they Google our country, they go and find out about the food, the culinary arts, the beaches, the flora, the fauna, the business opportunities, what is going on there, and you can't even tell the multiplier effects. So when we say that we want to increase our talent pool across the board, across the diaspora, we have been existing for nearly 3 generations now. There are thousands and thousands of citizens out there who we require to come home, to have that opportunity to build our nation, whether it be doctors, professors, artists, musicians. And these amendments will increase that pool so that we could continue to diversify the country, because already on that side, they're talking all of a sudden, they know about deficit. Before, when they're on this side, they couldn't account to the Auditor General and they create phantom revenue, but now they're predicting deficit because they were unable to be creative. They were unable to take decisions to move us forward. Senator Att's brilliant maiden contribution. I hope when I'm finished that I can allay some of your fears, okay? The problem with our country is, let me deal with the first one, that you think maybe by increasing the talent pool, some of our local athletes or local people, local entrepreneurs will be disadvantaged. First and foremost, competition is great. Competition is what makes us better. We are not, as Trinbagonians, afraid of competition. We invite it. And we will rise to the occasion and improve our levels across the board domestically. And if we take sport as an example, we will improve at all levels because competition makes you do that. So, in the short term, it will seem that some of our athletes right now will be disadvantaged. But is that because they are not good? Or is that because the systems that have been allowed to wane or to dwindle under the PNM have created a situation that we go backward. The problem in Trinidad and Tobago is that the PNM is like a recurring rash. It always comes back. So when you have, for example, in sport, you had sport between 2010 and 2015, improvements and increase in funding, like the NPI vote. The Honorable Vishnu Dan Paul, former Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Finance, will know that. The NPI vote is where you get money to invest in your athletes, in your coaches, in your programs, in your grassroots development that Senator Atts was talking about. That had gone up by 2011 to 140 million. In comes the rash of the PNM, and it dropped back to 10 million. Therefore, that investment that was cut by 130 million for 9.5 years leads our athletes, our coaches, our management, our teams at a disadvantage. Therefore, while we were taking strides to move forward, to improve, to have grassroots levels where we would have competition for our national teams, by the cut in expenditure, the cut in investment, the cut in sport, we are now at a position that we are at a lower ebb than we were back in 2015 September. 2012 Olympics, we had the greatest number of athletes ever to qualify for the Olympics in 7 different sports. We had finalists, we had 10 finalists. We had 1 gold medal and 3 bronze medals. The PNM came in, and by 2016, only Keshawn Walcott, last in with the javelin that I gave him, squeezed out a bronze in 2016. By 2020, which is 2021 because of COVID, PNM, 0 medals, no finals. 2024, 1 final, no medals, because the investment was cut. So this government, while taking this decision to improve the talent pool, is also simultaneously going to return Trinidad and Tobago to the levels of sport investment, sport education, sport science, across the board. The PNM, I have to go in detail to let you all know, because if you don't believe that sport is powerful, you come into power and you put a minister of sport who says, well, I'm the minister of sport. I played tennis a bit when I was 7, and I walk half marathon. Now, people might think that's funny, but would you go for brain surgery with somebody who said, well, I took 2 Panadol and I dealt with my child who had a fever? Or would you want somebody who is expert, who understands the importance, who understands the revenue streams, who understands the diversification that is possible to lead the sport ministry? So unfortunately, the PNM does not talk or does not care about sport, and that's what happened. There were 75 sport development officers there in September 2015. The PNM fired all and cut all. There was a rural coaching caravan which took the best coaches with scientific knowledge of talent identification. The PNM cut that. I already told you how they cut the MPI vote. In football that we're talking about now, the investment in football in the TT Pro League, the UNC Government-People Partnership at that time was pumping $15 million per year into the Pro League. There were 4 separate competitions, $2 to $3 million into the Super League. All of that was cut. Where our professional football leagues were struggling, teams are struggling, the salaries of players and managers are cut, and therefore the level of performance goes down. So in this stopgap measure with a government who needs to move forward, you have to have a short-term plan, a medium-term plan, and a long-term plan. This, for sport as well as other areas of diversification, is an immediate short-term plan to try to get some results, because the PNM has left our sportsmen and women suffering. We had no hockey turf for 9.5 years. Our national teams could not prepare. The aquatic center went green 3 times. I swam in an aquatic center in Fort Lauderdale in 1979. The Hall of Fame Aquatic Center, which is still in existence, it has never gone green. The PNM put our aquatic center green. It could not maintain the complexes. Furthermore, the policy of the PNM to lock the people out of their facilities ensures that the talent pool cannot get access to these facilities in order to compete, in order to be great. The 0 medals, 0 finals is not a fluke. It is a well-designed failure of the PNM across the board for 10 years. They cut down elite funding. They cut down the SOSA Awards. Some people wouldn't even know what that was. Spirit of Sport Awards. It's an award that recognizes achievement. Media, sports writers, grassroots coaches, development, physiotherapists. PNM come in. That's not important. Don't worry with that. There was a growth pole in Couva that was meant to diversify the economy. Part and parcel of the program and plans and cabinet note that were there in September 2015 were that these facilities where we have the Atto Bolden Stadium, we have the National Cricket Center. I started the aquatic center that was completed late, but by the PNM, and the cycling velodrome. And then the BMX center was supposed to go there. If you open these facilities and allow parents to bring their children in their thousands, what it would have done is attracted business. You would have attracted an entrepreneur who would build a hotel. You would have a little mall with a health shop and a restaurant and a massage and a dentist and so on. But by the PNM coming in and locking these facilities and saying only those who ask for permission could go, they defeated the purpose. The second purpose of that was to encourage sport tourism. Why do we want to qualify for the World Cup? Yes, I love football. I love to win. I don't like to lose. But the real benefit of high performance, elite performance is the marketing of your country, the marketing of your brand. So sport tourism with all these fantastic facilities, if they were maintained properly, because now we have to find money to go and maintain them, to refurbish them, and to get them going. For 9.5 years, the PNM did nothing with sports tourism. They asked for a sports tourism master plan. They sent out an RFP in 2023. The outer government, and I don't think the RFPs have been analyzed or evaluated yet by the Ministry of Tourism, which now don't even exist. That is what the PNM does. But sport tourism is a method to earn foreign exchange. Our system, our place on the globe, where we exist, Trinidad and Tobago, southernmost Caribbean, in the middle between Canada, USA, Central America, South America, connected with the fantastic facilities, the great climate that we have, the food, the beverage, the cheap oil and gas, so low electricity rates, low cost, plus our Caribbean airlines, our own airline. Sport tourism was the way to go. There was a plan and a program and a cabinet note that was there to turn all of our students, all of our children. We were suffering from brain drain. One of the ways to utilize our existing human resource out there, whether they were studying economics or medicine or law or social work or politics or political science, social work, in any country, we were going to make our children out there agents of Trinidad and Tobago. So if you're at a university, say you're at the University of Florida, and you get your Florida swim team of 24 people to come to train for 2 weeks at the aquatic center, stay at the Hyatt, pay money for taxis and so on, eat food, you would get a percentage of that as a salesperson. We would have had approximately at that time 755 agents selling Trinidad and Tobago, but in came the rush, which is the PNM, and that was thrown away. So we are here today, beginning once again. There was also a National Football Development Plan, Senator Adds, that was there. It would have costed $87 million per year. In 14 corporations and Tobago, we would have had a technical director, a coach, a physiotherapist, an equipment manager for girls and boys teams from under 10, under 14, under 17, working and training all year round, from which the TTFA could then hold their trials through competitions in the corporations, and coaches on the national level through TTFA could have seen talent, spotted talent, shortlist talent, and bring them into the national team. That was thwarted 10 years ago. Therefore, our athletes are now at their lowest ebb. We are producing the lowest level that we have in the last 50 years. Back in the days when you saw in Point 14 and so on, Leroy De Leon and players of such a great ilk, they were playing football, not really being coached in institutions and by coaches, but just the mere fact that there were competitions running. The younger boys who were skillful would play with the older boys. You have Senator Nakid here who would tell you, now our players do not have that level of skill. It takes a scientific intervention. It takes an intervention of leadership that will understand. Part and parcel of what we need to do now is we need to find talent while we put back the systems in place to give our primary school children, secondary school children, and children across the board the opportunity to build their talent and to achieve their dreams. We cannot sit back and just leave our children and say, oh, we are not doing very well. Let's tell them that they're doing good. Life is about competition. We must lift our level and we must improve and give our children the opportunity to succeed. Unfortunately, the PNM has put us underground, and we in the UNC, we will take us from underground. We will dig ourselves out and create the programs to deal and to improve our athletes. But for right now, we need to get talent wherever it is, whether grandmommy, granddaddy, across the board. There was also the UE Spec Sport Management producing graduates every year. There was a plan and a cabinet note to link each one a year, would take a graduate from UE Spec and put them in the 49 sporting organizations to manage them so that they'll move away from nepotism and friendship and who to make who. Sport is the purest thing. Sport is a true meritocracy, and that's why the PNM can't understand it, because meritocracy means you're not afraid of competition. Meritocracy means you get the brightest of the bright across the board. You don't have an attorney general who didn't take mathematics, or you don't have an attorney general who couldn't get into law school. You take the best. You don't have a minister of finance who now did finance degree in 2024 after he crashed our economy. That is not how it operates. We on this side believe that you must be the best, and if you are the best, we're not afraid of you. We don't cower. We stand there and we try to improve our level so that we could be brighter also. There's a Trinidad and Tobago anti-doping legislation that I passed in 2013. Both houses, unanimously. PNM came in. We had a Commonwealth Games that they said was sport tourism. Sport tourism is not paying money to invite people to pay their bill and so on so that they can have a competition. Sport tourism is getting people to come here, fly here, use taxi here, stay here, eat doubles and drink coffee here, train and pay to use your facilities, and then go back. But they didn't even have a TADO, a Trinidad and Tobago anti-doping organization 12 years later after it passed, because sport is not important to the PNM. So now we have to go dust off that legislation, put things in place, get a TADO board, get a lab, get accredited, get testing. We don't know what's going on across our country. Also, it's very irresponsible, because if you don't educate athletes about the deleterious effects of doping, it could impact your country's legacy. If we have 2 or 3 athletes that test positive for steroids and so on, do you know what they will question? They will question McDonald Bailey, 1952, bronze medal. He didn't run for Trinidad and Tobago because Trinidad and Tobago wasn't ready to let him go yet. The first medal we got was Rodney Wilkes, 1948. Yes, it wasn't the red, white, and black flag. It was TRI, and it was a British kind of flag, but it was Trinidad and Tobago. But they will say that Rodney Wilkes, McDonald Bailey, Hasely Crawford, Atto Bolden, Keshawn Walcott, were all, Wendell Motley and the relay, the world record with Roberts, that they took steroids and we are drug cheats, and that will impact our brand. So we have to be very careful and very serious. But the PNM didn't care. So for 10 years they're in charge, and there's no anti-doping agency, no anti-doping board, nothing. But I'll now move on. I heard some points from Senator Al-Rawi made it a little bit, and I heard it from the PNM, something about voter pardon and so on. Let's deal with that carefully. The mere fact that you would see some amendments to legislation to improve the caliber and quality of human beings, the intellect, to put all brains on deck, and your mind will go to voter pardon. Why and how would your mind reach there? And I proffer to you that that has been and will always be the modus operandi of the PNM, because they are about voter pardon. Why? If politics is about masses of people thinking that you perform well and you did well, and you perform well, and you implement policies that impact the masses, and they feel good, they have money in their pocket, they feel safe, then it follows logically that they will vote for you. However, the PNM has never been of that. The PNM has never been there to perform well for the masses. What they have been there to do is to control the masses, to gerrymander boundaries, and to vote apart, because anybody who could see voter padding in this legislation, someone needs to look within themselves, because they're thinking absolutely wrong. Secondly, well, on that point, since 1962 at Marlborough House, the PNM told Capildeo, who had a serious problem with the boundaries, Dr. Williams said, oh, sign it now, we up here. When we go home, we'll adjust that and we'll make it fair and representative of our melting pot. Well, it never changed, and it got worse. The PNM even brought voter machines. In one constituency, when they brought on the voter machines, which led to eventually a no-vote campaign, and PNM win all the seats. But in one of those seats, they had more vote than electors, you know. That is the history of the PNM. So when they talk voter padding, they know about voter padding. The UNC, the ULF, the opposition does not know nor care about voter padding. We believe that we will perform well, and the people will vote for us across the board, across the races, across the constituencies. The PNM controls the EBC up to now. Everybody knows it's even gotten worse, where the friends of PNM ministers is head of EBC. The UNC is not of that. We are about fairness and competition. We're not afraid competition. Tobago, but the PNM didn't even learn the lesson. They tried to gerrymander the electoral boundaries in Tobago, and the Tobagonian people vote them out. They add on 3 seats, change it from 12 to 15. Under some constitutional amendment, did nothing to the constitution, did not amend anything, no powers and nothing. Tobago cannot even see about their own boundaries and national security, but the people saw it and they dealt with the PNM. So get this voter padding nonsense out of your mind. It just doesn't happen and cannot occur, because think about it, you're talking about if you're a naturalized citizen, that somehow you will some way come down to Trinidad and Tobago, not to invest, not to set up a business, not to represent the country, but to come and live in a constituency for 2 months, and then you will go and register in the EBC. That is a headache to go in that office anyway. I don't know who want to go in that office. And then you will sit down there for 2 months so you could come and vote apart. There is no need for vote apart. You all have been beaten by a landslide and will be beaten again. So get comfortable over there. Nobody need voter pardon. Is when you think it go be close. There is nothing going to be close. We will fix the deficit that was left here by Senator Dampol, the last Minister of Finance, who lasted a kobo sweat of 1 month. We will fix that. We will fix the revenue streams. We will fix the energy sector. We will diversify. We will improve sport. We will get our nationals out there. We will increase competition, and the country will develop without the PNM. The other assumption of voter padding, it's a very weird one. It's like the PNM almost is admitting subconsciously that anybody who has the wherewithal to be independent-minded and to live outside will never vote PNM. You see, you have to assume that, because if you think voter padding and we want people to come, it means that we know that people are going to come and vote for us. That means, conversely, that you know that people will never independently and intelligently vote for PNM. So that's how you all reach voter padding. But the truth is, PNM, when you read your history, all the Trinidad and Tobago communities, whether Brixton, Notting Hill, Brooklyn, Toronto, it's people who ran from the PNM. PNM, you all chasing people since 1956 into 1962 away from this country. There was a Black Power revolution because people couldn't get opportunity for under the PNM. Only certain people were getting benefits. So when you see people out there, you all might be correct. They might never want to hear the 3 letters PNM in any form or fashion. So that's where you get this concept. But then you should change your ways. But you got worse, because in the last 10 years, All your policies, your policy of recusal, your policy of contract, you have ministers getting up every day to say, no, my family get plenty contract, but I didn't do nothing. I recused myself 80 times, but I didn't do nothing. That is not inspirational to the people. The people are fed up of that. The UNC is here to give everybody a fair shake, everybody a chance to take part in the national pie. So you're correct. The people will not vote PNM, but it's not voter pardon. It's just that the PNM is not good. Ooh. Meritocracy. PNM is anti-merit. I already talked a bit about that. So I won't go in and bore you all, right? Because you all had a Minister of National Security who both he took 6 subjects and failed 5. I can't imagine my daughter, my son, somebody coming home and tell me, Daddy, I take 6 subjects, I failed 5. I don't know what I would do. I feel all you might have to send me in remand to see if I could vote in the next election if my child tell me that. You understand? Across the board in sport, and this is why we have to make changes. The PNM lack of merit, lack of competition, nepotism and corruption spread its way across sport. So when you see the Olympic Committee, for example, the last few presidents, Brian Lewis, screened for PNM, Port of Spain South, waste of time, no development, no science, no encouragement, no funding, no development. Therefore, our children are suffering. President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee before that, Douglas Camacho, PNM chairman of the sport company, loves hockey, was the chairman of hockey, but could not even put down an AstroTurf for the national hockey team to train in 9 years. The previous TTOC president, Larry Romani, campaign manager for Colm Imber, the Minister of Finance, who crashed the economy. Now you understand how deleterious, how diseased, how infectious the PNM incompetence is, and we on this side have to face it, have to understand what is going on, and solve the problems, of which these amendments are one small piece to improve our ability to make us more competitive, because our children were left wanting. Our coaches were left wanting. Our sport managers were left wanting under the 9.5 years of PNM oppressive reign. Now we must be careful, Senator Atz, you're correct. We have to have systems in place to vet, to understand who's coming, who wants to represent our country. We will have to get protocol officers, community service officers and so on to teach, to interview, to understand, to let them know who we are. Because just having a talented athlete who don't really care about the place is useless. Because at the highest levels, you have to be motivated. You have to come with passion. You have to know that 1.4 million people on the rock and 300,000 people are supporting you. You have to know about your pan. You have to know about your anthem. You have to know the words. You have to know a bit of the history. So you are correct. We cannot just go and pick up anybody and put them in a red, white, and black. That will not happen. And it must not happen. But we must also understand that sometimes even the best laid out plans fall by the wayside. 1991, Pan Am Gold, Trinidad and Tobago celebrated 50-meter freestyle, swimming, Mark Andrews, red, white, and black. And then he did an interview the next morning. And he had been born in Canada, adopted by Trini parents, naturalized here and swam for Trinidad and Tobago since 1976. And he said, I won the medal for the wrong country. We can't deal with that. We don't want that. But that happened from someone who grew here, lived here, trained here, went in the gym here. So yes, it is a serious concern, especially when you're increasing the pool, that we have to get people like Chris Burchell, who came down, his mother was Trini, and he was the most passionate midfielder, running 5 kilometers per game, tackling and scoring and really moving Trinidad and Tobago forward as we qualified for the World Cup in November of 2005.
A few seconds.
We also have to be careful because especially under the PNM, we've had great athletes who get no support, no love, no respect, and they go and run for other countries, like Keron Clement, Olympic and World Championship 400-meter hurdle gold medal. He's a Trinbagonian. But you heard the Star-Spangled Banner when he received his medal. So this, I commend and I ask all of you to support. It is not the be-all and end-all, but it will be a start to increase the ability and the capability of our nation's athletes, business people, and solve the problem of brain drain. I thank you, Mr. President. I wish I had more time.
Senator Foster Cummings.